Turn me up. This is
coming to you from the heart of the Pacific, brought to you by Paulie by Design.
respected at all times.
Broadcasting from San Francisco, California, the city by the bay.
It's about to go down.
We shine on positive Pacific Islander role model every Sunday.
Party on a Sunday.
From 10 a.m. to noon, it's time for the iconic FICA Podcast with your hosts,
Listening to
Mack and Carl.
Good morning, FICA family. It is January 31st, last day of January in 2021's already rushing by. So season 5, episode 6 of the FICA podcast. I'm your host, Carl. With me once again, Mac Molly. Good morning, Mac.
Good morning. Good morning.
Mac is still sitting in, still pinch hitting for his mother, Naki Molly, who is recovering from COVID. So we always talk about COVID. So at some point, we are going to talk about a little bit about her recovery and her path, and when we might see and hear her back in the studio. We are going to talk about, we're going to talk about Wall Street bets, Reddit, Robinhood, GameStop, AMC. The little guys shook up the big guys. Main Street got back at Wall Street, at least for the first round. We'll talk about that. We have our expert NFL picks that if you wanted to lose money, if you wanted to lose money, the best strategy was to follow my and Mac's picks from last week because we were 100% in getting them wrong.
100%. Can't get much higher than that, baby.
All of them. Undefeated. So we're probably going to pick the loser in the Super Bowl next this week.
So, yeah, just listen to who we pick. And then bet on the opposite.
Bet on the opposite. And we're going to talk about racism in America today for anybody who continues to talk about it not being a narrative and not being effective, being an effective thing or a significant thing in society today. We have a not only kind of a Darwin Award in that you're talking into a body cam purposefully, but a sheriff in Georgia was caught talking with one of his deputies into a body cam that he knew was there, but he was confident it didn't work. And he said some really, it's nice. I like to see the racism out in the open. I would rather it not be hidden. So when you have a sheriff, somebody who can take your liberty away, somebody who influences his deputies, talking like this, I think it's a good thing to get out there so that people don't think that, hey, it's 2021 and we don't have to worry about racism anymore. So that's the show today. Mac, how's your week?
Oh, man, it was good. It was a good week. Still trying to be productive, keeping that train rolling, ran a little bit.
Nice.
Getting a little bit easier. Still breathing hard, though, so not where I need to be. And I think I talked about it last week, but hey, made some money in the stock market this week.
If you're in the stock market, and mostly I'm an index fund guy. Mm-hmm. So I don't really fool around with, I'll dabble with individual stocks just like playing bingo, I guess, is in like, I've got that. I don't care if I lose a certain, like it's money that's used for entertainment. Yeah. I'm not like betting my mortgage or, my rent or car payment on.
No, I'm not acting like Adam Sandler in Uncut Gems where all of my life relies on this one trade. No, I recently got into it because of COVID, a lot of things have gone down and it's rare you see these kind of dips. And so I even, luckily for me, I bought some stock options for AMC before the inauguration, because to me it was like a post-COVID play.
Right, it's going to come back.
Yeah, once we start opening, I'm sure Biden, he was dead set on some sort of recovery plan. And even just him talking about it, you can see stock prices go up a little bit.
Right.
I didn't know that Wall Street Bets and whoever else was going to, pump it to spite hedge fund managers, which is great for me because I bought 3 contracts for like $100, mm-hmm. and all 3 of them now are, priced at $3,000.
So we'll talk about the specific thing with AMC that Mac was talking about in GameStop, and the kind of the eye-opening thing that the American public got in terms of how Wall Street works. I think not everybody, but millions of people got an education on that. So we'll definitely dig into that. And I think that shorting a stock and those kind of things. I think that when people figured out what that was, they're like, this is this is manipulated gambling. But
Yeah.
and I think that's a wise choice in that, looking at towards the end of COVID, like what do people want to do? And when they get free of COVID, they're going to want to go eat. They're going to want to go to the movie. They're going to want
Right.
to go do all these things. Like you could almost pick, like, what haven't we been able to do under COVID, and pick those stocks of
Yeah.
what we haven't been able to do is probably what's going to blow up. So that's a wise choice. Mr.
Well, also
Mullen.
for me too, I was looking at what the prices were, the stock price before COVID, because you could see the drop off and like where they averaged before, and you're like, okay, well, even just a $10 increase, I can make a certain amount. I can make a little bit of change off of that, but I wasn't expecting these guys to pump it through the roof.
Nice of them to do that.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. I don't know you, but I'll take it. And then, of course, just still working, chugging along on that.
How is work? How's anything different now or 2021 versus 2020? Or is it pretty much just business as usual?
So one thing I was talking about maybe on Twitter is the best quarantine adjustment we've made is that we don't do meetings on Fridays.
Nice.
And it's enjoyable because, I don't know, it's almost a year now for me. In March, it'll be a year where I'm working from home. And I just don't think we need all the check-ins and you get bogged with so many meetings because a lot of managers can't, they like to micromanage. Or not any that I work with, but, there's people, there's a certain control when you can actually see your employee doing their job. And so I'm sure there's a part of them that are like, what are you doing? Hey, I was at
Let me just chat in.
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah.
Cameras on, people. I hate that part.
I'm glad
let's
we
turn the
don't-
cameras on. Oh man.
Yeah, we don't press for that, so I'm glad.
Nice.
There was one guy actually on Friday, side note, no one can say his name out there, but I thought he was hilarious. He was an engineer. We work hard, I promise, but this shows you like just how nice we are. He wrote in the group like, hey guys, sorry, I kind of slept through the day, so I guess I'll take a sick day today since I didn't do any work today.
I'm just self-reporting here.
Yeah, and I was like, okay, well, I appreciate the honesty.
That's virtual honesty. Let's see. So, Noel Osito Santana, good morning on Facebook. Evie Fooley, and I don't know if Naki misspelled Auntie's name. It is Evie Fooley. George and Rebecca Achika, good morning, Achika family. Jen and Dean Willis, Hawaii, checking in early over there.
morning.
I don't know if it's 7 or 8, but it's early over there. Jane Paulo, good morning, Jane. And I supported a church fundraiser for Jane. And
Nice.
I got a chocolate cake and some cookies coming. They're coming today or tomorrow. I can't
Ooh,
wait
I
for
will
that.
support anybody that gives me chocolate cookies.
I was like, do I want? And then I saw chocolate cake and chocolate cookies. And I'm like, then
Yeah.
I'm in. And it's just as easy as clicking a Venmo, send the money and then Jane delivers. So if you're looking for a good nonprofit, a nice church to support, hook up with Jane. Kea Acosta, good morning, Kea. Epi Almavai with Samoan Solutions. We'll talk about what kind of work she's doing. She did some really good things for Poly by Design, literally like this morning or last night. So Vicky Horth, Steph Lemalu, and Naki said, Steph, thank you for the panipopo. Naki's getting, there's food, right? So we are, for those of you keeping track, we're 13 minutes in before we started talking about food on the FICA podcast, and Naki isn't even here, and we're still talking about food. Yeah, so I think you're right. We kind of went overboard with once everybody knew it was virtual, I think there was this flood of, let's have all these touch bases because we can do it virtually. Just because you can doesn't mean that you need to or you should. The other thing that really bugs me is people that set meetings at my company, they got to make them for an hour. Like it's 10 to 11,
really?
Or it's 11, and then if they say an hour on the calendar, it's like they feel the need to fill up that hour. And there's pieces where I'm like, this could have been a 20-minute meeting.
Yeah.
And just everybody get off. But it's like if somebody's taken up a block on your calendar, they feel the need to make it an hour. So it sounds like your company's ahead of that. They don't.
Well, we
They don't
try
do that?
to be efficient with everyone's time, And we started having like quick meetings just because we were like limited on actual meeting space when we were in office. You know, you'd book a room after someone else, and then there's that awkward moment of like standing there 5 minutes at your time waiting for someone to come out. And then, you know, they're all like frosted so they can't see you, and you're like looking under, you're walking by trying to make noise like, hey, I'm out here waiting for you. So we just started, you know, speeding them up just before COVID, but now more so because we're aware that like everyone has different lives at home. We have people with kids, and they can't just sit there for an hour or 2 hours waiting for us to talk about nothing. So
I was watching I think it's called 30 to Life on YouTube. It's a Samoan guy from Vacaville, and he did, I don't know, I think he did 10 years. And there's like a whole genre of YouTube out there of ex-cons that talk about what it was like to be in prison. With the, you know, at the end, he always, the Samoan guy always ends it with, look, I'm telling you these things because I'm explaining how difficult it is in prison. And his line of shirts and stuff is stay the F out of trouble. And his thing's like, you know, he knew somebody that didn't have any record, nothing. And they were wrong place, wrong time, did some dirt in prison, came out, messed up, incarcerated in and out. They're homeless now. And his point was like, this guy never had any kind of record. And he just, you know, didn't stay out of trouble. And it wasn't like this long road to it. It was, you know, one time. But you were talking about how you're waiting for a conference room. He was talking about when he was in, I don't remember where, but there were the handball courts they were sharing with a different ethnic group. So there was time for one group to use the handball courts, and then the other group came in after. And this young Samoan guy got in there, huge guy, I guess, like, you know, 6'5", 300 pounds or something, just the biggest guy in. But he didn't understand prison politics, and he figured that the time was up for them to, the previous ethnic group, to be off the court. So he went in there and started throwing the ball over their heads and walking around in their game saying, you know, your time's up. And he didn't understand the politics of it. So I guess an OG sat down with him, schooled him on like, look, you could start a race war. Like, it's not just because you think it's time and you're going to go bully them out of their courts. Yeah, you're bigger than everybody over there. But one, if you're wrong, nobody's going to back you up. So if they come for you, then we may just...
Then we all have to do something.
Yeah, we either have to deal with it, or we're just going to sit back and not back your play.
Right.
If you're just completely out of bounds. But
yeah, I hear you. So next time I'll just walk right into the meeting, start hosting my own meeting in the middle of it.
just start presenting.
Yeah, on the opposite wall, and just cut the room in half and just have my own meeting. Yeah, I'll try that next time. How was your week?
My week was good. A lot of walking. Down another pound.
Staying out of, you know, not touching other people's plants and fences.
Yeah, I can't help myself. Eventually, I'm going to be friends with those people. I mean, I know that's going to happen, but we got this period where we got to go through, and now I just, you know, I can't not touch the hedges. I don't know. I'm trying not to, but I'm not having good success with that. We had a big storm, big windstorm on Monday night, Sunday night. I don't know what day it was, what night it was, but it was Monday night because I figured there'd be garbage all over the neighborhood because Tuesday's garbage day. And really wasn't that bad, but there was a bunch of fences and some trees that had blown over. So I kind of, on my walk, I was picking stuff up, and, you know, if there's some garbage that had dumped over. So I was kind of being the neighborhood guy, and I got to their house, and their garbage bin was tipped over, and there was I remember it was a empty Old Spice gel thing, the wash that you put in the
body wash.
The body wash.
Okay.
It was an empty one of those, and I was like, okay, you picked everybody else's. So I picked it up, put it in their garbage, closed their thing, and as I was walking off, I was like, see, I did a good thing. Like, they should, if they're looking out the window, they saw that I just picked up their garbage for them. And then as I'm walking by, I couldn't help myself. I reach out and touch their hedges. So can't not do it, but I don't know. I walked a lot, and I've been jumping down a rabbit hole of just Samoan stuff. Like
Yeah.
the guy, 30 for Life guy, but then the books. I read a book. I listened to a book on audiobooks called Sea Peoples. Really interesting book. So if you're into Polynesian history, really it's more Polynesian than specifically Samoan history. But Sea Peoples goes through the how did Polynesians end up in the Pacific, because it's been a anthropological argument for centuries.
Yeah.
What I found interesting was in the book, it goes back and it takes it from the view in the 16th century of the Dutch, because that's the only ones that had history at that point that were recording it were the Dutch. So she went through the 1600s, the 1700s, the 1800s, and how, like in the 1800s, there was Robinson Crusoe, and like the thought of Europe was this romanticism of faraway lands or ancient people, right? So that's the history. Like people were saying, they're writing books about, how ancient cultures or faraway lands are really romantic places, and that was the way history was written. And then as it went forward, it was interesting how they figured that the Polynesians were the navigators of the Pacific up until the 50s. And then it got to the 50s, and then she was talking about the push, the push of civil rights culture versus racism. And there was a big push that the Pacific Islanders could not have intentionally populated the Pacific. So there's this huge scientific push in the 50s to prove that all they did was were clinging to a piece of wood, and a storm blew you over to the next island, or you just drifted over to the next island. And it was just really interesting to hear each segment of history from that time in history, not looking back at it, but listening to the arguments of, some Scandinavian guy sails from South America all the way to the Tuamotu Islands. And so they're saying, see, the Pacific Islanders didn't have, it wasn't intentional. You could just drift anywhere. And then, in the 60s, they start doing computer simulations. And you find out that, yeah, that guy got towed out like 60 miles from the coast and caught a current 60 miles. But if you would have drifted off of a beach in Southern America, you would have never made it. So the scientific approach of it is it's fascinating for me in terms of where we came from, how the islands were populated, how much like Nainoa Thompson and the Mao navigator piece was in the 70s and 80s. So that's what reading a lot of books about Polynesia and Samoan.
You read all that this week?
I finished. I finished
Just downloaded all of our people's history,
oral history. So no, I finished that book this week, and then I started. I've got some short ones.
That sounds interesting, though.
Yeah,
it's worth checking out.
It's the oral history thing. Just to continue to go down this rabbit hole was really interesting to me, because they talk about how history is told. If we write about something 100 years ago, that we're going to make up we're going to fill in some of the blanks, right? Because this is kind of, this is the culture. So it's kind of told from the point of view from forward looking back. An oral history, a culture that has an oral history, you're literally telling your story at the time that you're living it. So there's less of the, exaggeration or those kind of things, because you're going to tell your story as it is. And then that's the oral history that you pass on to the next generation. So it's more present, I guess, in terms of historical measures. So there's a long version of how my week is. A lot of reading, a lot of, I don't know how long it'll last. This kick will last, but I'm way into, I've read a bunch about Maui, tuna, Polynesian legends, those kind of things.
Nice.
So good. It's interesting so far. So we'll see how long the fascination takes.
Oh, well, wish you the best. I mean, there's definitely a rabbit hole for any topic on YouTube for sure.
Yeah. There's a lot of rabbit holes on the internet. All right, let's talk about AMC, Wall Street Bets, and Robinhood. So this week, they really, I mean, like 2 million Redditors shook up the investment world. And when you hear hedge firms talking about we need regulation, you know something bad. Something really bad to them has happened because
they do not give a damn about regulation.
they're the ones that never want regulation. Like free market, we should be able to do whatever we want and let the market sort it out.
Right.
And the market sorted out some stuff this week that they really didn't like. So, what do you know about how your AMC stock went rocketed up the screen?
Yeah. So apparently they, I'm sure everyone's heard by now, but a group of Redditors found out that there were a few hedge funds taking a big short. I guess that's what it's called. Taking a short position on GameStop, AMC, a few other people, which is basically where you bet on the company going down. But to the extent that they did it, they shorted more than the stock that is actually available. So I guess they're being a little greedy in that sense. And the way you could make or lose money on those short positions is infinite.
Right.
And so, you get it at a certain price, you make the trade, and then you have to pay for it again later. And so what they were doing, which a lot of people were speculating, is that the short position that they took was so large that it actually affected the GameStop stock price. So they had assumed, there's signs of it, that the short position that they were taking was actually manipulating the GameStop stock itself, because GameStop had been making moves, new PlayStation coming out, new Xbox coming out. These sort of things normally just bump the price on its own. So people said, this is weird here. And they seen it as an opportunity to make money and take money from the hedge fund themselves. And they were so good at it that, it looked like Robinhood had to step in. They said that they had to do it because of, I don't know what their answer was. They said regulatory reasons. I think Webull was coming out and saying like, hey, we just don't know if we can pay everyone.
Right. If everything called in. If
liquidity issue.
Right.
If everyone settled their positions or their stocks, we wouldn't have enough money to pay everyone. So they really broke the system on all fronts. But this is a good stress test for these new brokerage apps, and it's good. It's exciting to see where it's going to go from here.
Yeah, I think for so long, Wall Street it's been their own little game, right? And the big players are in there, and little players go in and get smashed all the time.
Yeah.
I think they're saying, I don't know, lions always eat, the wolves always eat, but the lambs always get slaughtered. Like that's the thing, and they're the wolves, and they're the bears, and they're the the sharks, and the little people that come in are kind of like me in that I'm just going to take an index fund because I'm going to, wherever the market goes, I'm going to go, and it's always gone up over time. But now I think the world's being opened up to, if 2 million Redditors can change that, and so people understand how, when you short a stock, that term, what it means is if I short a stock with Mac and I say, look, I'm going to borrow these 100 shares, and I'm going to buy them back later at a later date because I'm expecting it to go down. So you either buy a stock because you expect it to go up, or you buy a stock because you expect it to go down. If I'm shorting a stock, I'm going to I'm going to get those shares from Mac, and I'm going to say, look, I'm going to keep these shares. At some point, I'm going to buy them back. I'm going to buy 100 shares back from you, no matter the price. So if a $10 stock goes down to $8 and I buy those shares from Mac, I'm making $2. So the share went down $2. I made $2 just from a simple math perspective. So the most I can make, depending on the amount of shares I buy, is $10 really per share. But the losses can be infinite. So if that stock goes from 10 to 20, I still got to buy those shares back from Mac, and now it's costing me $200. If it goes from 10 to 1,000, I got to buy those 10 shares from Mac back at $1,000, and I'm out $900. Like it can just be infinite as it goes up.
I mean, it started at 3 and now it's at 300.
300. It was almost 400 at one point.
Billions of dollars were lost from these hedge funds groups.
One firm lost $2.2 billion.
Sick.
And You know why I don't feel sorry for that guy? Because the guy was on the Squawk Box and he was on saying, I'm buying more. Like he was doubling down on his position, basically saying, you know, I'll last longer than you little people that are putting the money in.
Oh, good luck.
And he bowed out at $2.2 billion loss.
Yeah. You know, where it's this weird thing where, because like I said, last year and a little bit before that, I started to getting into stocks and trying to figure it out like every other wolf on Wall Street at their home. But you can kind of see which ones are kind of like going viral. And it's this weird effect on trading where people, I don't know who starts this narrative, kind of like Dogecoin. I don't know if you've seen that one. It's a meme. It started on TikTok, but like the more people talk about it, the more popular it gets and more people invest in it. And it's very volatile and it's kind of unstable. But this hedge fund approach is definitely more, or, you know, this short squeeze is definitely more stable than, I think, Dogecoin or
that's a legit stock. I mean, Dogecoin had never been over, you know, not even a penny stock at some points. It was just, that's a different thing than GameStop or AMC. These are legit companies that have history. So I think that, you know, is this something that changes the market? And I think that it can, except for when I'm hearing hedge funds yell for regulation, I know that there is some bad stuff afoot. Let's see. Naki's hitting me up because I haven't done the shout outs here in a minute. So Cummings, Nauer, Takapautolo, Nacho Sofele, Sia, Siva, Taupele, Neemia. Good morning, Sila. Oh, yeah. And Nagy says, long name. She laughs at me. Lena Manuleleua, Anthony Masoli, and Alessanga Asawao. Good morning, everybody on our Facebook Live. Please share the show out so that you can hear us laugh more at hedge funds that lost billions of dollars. Why is it funny when other people lose? Because it is. Is that an American thing? But it's funny when people lose.
Yeah. And it's also funny just to hear them, just to see them squirm, you know, on TV and cry and complain. And it's amazing. Like you said, we got the CEO of NASDAQ or whatever their position is talking about regulation. And it's like, since when?
He couldn't, you saw that interview, obviously. He couldn't even get it out of his mouth right. He was like, and I think there may be regulation needed. Like he couldn't, it was so against his nature to sit on there and say, my industry needs more regulation. What he's saying is uncontrollable forces and energy like Redditors need to be somehow calmed down. I mean, really, that's what when he was saying that, that's what he was saying.
And for the average person like myself who doesn't know too much, it just doesn't make sense to us how that is any different than what we've seen before.
Right.
Where people just, it seems like the wild, wild west in there, where they're able to do this and that. I mean, you know, obviously there's the parts that we get from the SEC where, you know, we're trying to make sure people don't get taken advantage of or people are being fraudulent with the system. But this doesn't appear to be that. This appears to be what is a legal play that a lot of people make.
Right.
And it's actually the counter to the play that they've already made.
The thing is it doesn't, they come on all the time and they'll go on MSNBC or Fox Money or whatever it is, and they'll go on there and you'll have a hedge fund manager that owns, 2 million shares of this stock that are talking about, look, this stock is, and they've shorted it. They know that, they own 2 million of it because they've shorted it. And then they go on there and they talk about their balance sheet and their P&L doesn't look good and their assets are out of alignment. And they talk bad stuff about the company to try to drive the stock down. It's no different than Reddit saying, hey, we're going to drive the stock price up.
Yeah.
But it's like traditional, I don't even know what to call it, but that's the way the market's always worked. And it almost reminds me of like trading places. Like I was laughing going, I wonder if it was $1 bet on Reddit where one guy bet another guy. I bet we can make this guy lose $2 billion. It was legit fun to watch through the week. And I just look at it and go, it's fun to watch people lose at their own game.
Right. It's funny to see them say, hey, these aren't the rules. These are the rules we agreed to. And it's like, you can't make the rules. I thought this was a free market. But, for me, shows what I think about the internet, which is like it's become this great equalizer, right? In many instances where people who don't normally have a voice or have this knowledge are able to gain that, and then boom, flip the whole system. Create the guy lost $2 billion. $2 billion. That's a lot of money.
Man, that's and to have people on there saying, "I don't care, I'll buy more of it." Like I'm you know, or I'm not sure what he was saying. Basically, he was defying it and saying he'd write it out, and he wrote it to the bottom. I mean, he did basically what all investment books and, you know, teachers are going to tell you not to do, is write it down to the bottom. They're going to tell you, look, you got a loss, you got a loser, you cut your losses, you take your money, you go put it in a better vehicle. Not just to not lose the money, but then to have it free to go earn for you. But that guy, $2 billion, I don't think he's going to be the president of that fund in much longer.
Hey, I wish him luck in whatever you do next, my friend.
So Biden, 40 executive orders in 9 days.
Wow.
By far, you know, I guess we're in the, you know, the greatest, the most this country's ever seen. You know, Trump kind of started that off. 40 executive orders in the first 9 days. Does that worry you?
Does it worry me? Kind of. I mean, I just think it's funny that we're going in this like back and forth where presidents just executive order each other's work and it's up out of there. I guess the amount is kind of high. Like, I haven't looked at all 40 of them, you know.
I knew there was a lot. I had no idea there was 40.
Yeah. 40 seems like that. You said, is that the most that anyone has done? I'm not sure.
In 9 days. Yeah. In the beginning of I think Trump had one in 9 days. I mean, that's just comparing to Trump, but
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I just know that's a lot. So it does concern me in that it's a Democratic Congress, it's a Democratic Senate by one. I mean, they're both close. And then a Democratic White House issuing executive orders. That concerns me from a sense of checks and balances. The ones I've seen, you know, there's only a couple I saw that I was kind of like, I don't know if I agree with that. But I'm just, from a checks and balances standpoint, without getting into each of the 40, that concerns me.
Yeah, well, I feel like after 4 years of Trump, who I think was successful in doing a lot of things that he wanted to do, I would like to think that is some sort of balance that happens, but I definitely see what you're talking about when these guys are running the table, so they might push through a lot of things, but I don't know, Biden's more of a centrist. Like,
yes.
I'm not too afraid. Like, as much as they wanted to paint him as the radical liberal of the left, him and Kamala, to me, they're not.
No.
In my eyes, what you would see as a radical liberal. So I'm not too afraid of what they're going to do. I'm actually worried they won't do a lot of the things.
Yeah, I think the one they were talking about, you know, them being progressives, not even radicals, but just progressive. You know, Bernie was progressive.
Yeah.
Warren was progressive. They're not of the same. Yang was very progressive. Those are the ones that I think the right tried to paint Biden as, and you know, he's near 5 decades, just set right down the middle in terms of being a Democrat. So you think that what do you think falls out of this with the Wall Street bets and Robinhood? Robinhood took a lot of heat for they closed positions. They would not let people buy on Thursday morning. You could sell AMC and GameStop, but you couldn't buy any. And there's speculation that, like, one said he was a former Robinhood employee, said that the White House had called and was like, look, you need to shut this down. Like, they can sell, they can't buy. So who knows whether, you know, I saw it on the internet, so it must be true. But do you think anything significant or major changes in the way that people can trade or people can speculate?
I hope not. I hope that this isn't the catalyst for these guys to actually get some, you know, regulation in there and make changes. I think, if anything, they're just going to have to adjust to this, because I don't think it's going to go away anytime soon, especially when you look at the amount of money people have made. It might actually change the way hedge funds approach their investment strategies now that they know that the people have this at play. Ooh, and it might even hurt Robinhood because they're talking about going public, and this was not favorable from a lot of the user standpoint. A lot of people aren't happy with Robinhood and their decisions.
Well, to me, it was like they were really happy with Robinhood on Wednesday night. Like Robinhood was one of the, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Like that's the way that I'm going into the market. And then on Thursday morning, when millions of people couldn't buy the position through Robinhood, then I think that it just was a complete 180 to.
Well, and that also had effect on the shares itself. When the regular average Joe like myself can't buy shares, but we're aware that the hedge fund groups, they're trading freely,
right?
And they actually have the ability to trade, like, I think at least an hour after the market closes. Mm-hmm. So then, you feel like myself, you feel like, man, we're up against a lot here just because we're dependent on this app. But they're not the only app, and so people will pack up and leave and try another one.
That's the free market. So
right.
That's the way that, for the free market enthusiasts, of which I am, not completely, wild west free market, but as free as possible, or to where it's fair. So if somebody can trade an hour longer than somebody else, that's not fair. That's not a true free market. That's an edged free market. But if one app isn't giving you what you want and you can go to another app, that's the free market. That's me being able as a consumer to say, I like this, not that. I'm going to vote with my dollar to go through that. So hopefully it doesn't. Hopefully it was so big. It got so big so fast. And to come from a message board where they're just like, you know what? We love GameStop. Like, why are you driving this company into the ground? Like they're having hard times. But now if the hedge funds come in and they all start talking bad things about the stock, like they're the ones that could put GameStop out of business.
Well, they even showed one where, obviously, I'm not going to speculate on what happened, but when the new CEO was announced I believe he was the new CEO of GameStop, he came from more of like a digital e-commerce thing where GameStop is more brick and mortar, right? And so he was the new CEO. And so people were excited, like, oh, okay, maybe GameStop's going to move to a more digital approach because people can download games now. People aren't going to the store. Even on that day, you've seen that there was big short positions taken on that same day. And so people feel like, oh, look, they're clearly trying to bring down the price. Well, we can play that game too.
Yeah. Especially, and you think about, they short it until, if it doesn't drive it out of business, it drives it from 50 to 30. You know what I mean? And then they just turn around and they buy the stock because they know it's going to come back up. And then that's where I think that, so you can short a stock, you can borrow you can play that on margin. So basically you don't need every dollar that would normally require you and I to do.
Right.
The hedge funds have a huge margin, so they basically are not putting their own money out there for it until they cash out and they earn money. And I think that those are the kind of things that the normal American didn't know until now. And they're like, wait a minute, there's all these things, all these mechanisms in place for the little guy to be at a disadvantage. And the one time the little guy says, hey, we can gather together.
The one advantage we do have.
Right.
Of the long list of disadvantages we have. And all of a sudden now that's a problem.
Right.
And so for me and everyone else involved, it's just kind of funny that this is what it takes to try to, take a deeper look at it.
It is. For a long time, they had, these supercomputers that were able to make their trades in split seconds, like, far less than a second. And, being a second late, like that could be millions of dollars over a long period of time. And what do you have? A long time ago, we had dial up. You know what I mean? Like it's always, the advantage is always towards big business. So hopefully this doesn't end it. Hopefully this is the beginning and not, some flash where we look at it 20 years from ago. Remember when Robinhood did that and then was all gone from there? Let's see. Let's pay some bills. Let's talk about Essence of Mana. Are you ready, Mena? Okay. Essence of Mana is offering a free classes via Zoom. The classes start February 4th They're reaching out to our PI community, and it doesn't matter where you live because it's virtual. You just need to be willing to commit to the course, which is 12 weeks. For more info or to register, you can hit up Lulu Messina at 415-243 or 415-243-6328 or L Messina at healthright360.org. And I think that you can find that on our social media, and it's probably on your screen right now because we have the best producer ever. Thank you, Mena. So just some points on the Essence of Mana class. They really like to do the classes in person. And, obviously 2020, they couldn't do that. So they've had to find ways to make the virtual classes engaging, make you so you're not like checking your email and those kind of things. It's a really interesting course. It talks about the interaction between parent and a child, especially from a Pacific Islander perspective. And in today's day and age where like violence and trauma and all those kind of things are being talked about, and a lot of those are after, right? We're trying to figure out how to do it after. This is a class that can help reduce the trauma between parent and child, give the parent some more tools to deal with, and in the Pacific Islander kind of environment or perspective. So Essence of Mana is something that Naki and Neil have been through. And if Naki was here, she'd tell you all the good things that she learned from it. So definitely, if you are able to commit to those 12 weeks, the classes start February 4th. They are accredited, or they count for like court mandated family counseling or parenting. They'll count for court mandated things too. So just to get tools or to fulfill a court requirement, they can do that at Essence of Mana. Luminati's education gift. If you are a Samoan student living in the San Francisco Bay Area, check out the different categories and apply. Applications are due by April 12th, 2021. Check Samoan Solutions Instagram page for the link to apply. Applications are due by April 12th, 2021. On that note, Samoan Solutions, one of the founders, Epi Almavai, also runs Fatma Malu Designs. And if you are like just about every other Pacific Islander and you get things done on the 11th hour, the day before the deadline, when the deadline came like 3 months ago, Epi's your person. She's the one that you can just say, look, I need this, and here's the theme. And she like does all the creativity work for you. And I literally did that to Epi yesterday. I messaged her and I was like, hey, I'm looking for a Pacific Islander, female, graphic design that does things at the very last second, and that has done work with me before. Do you know anybody like that? And of course, she came through, sent it through this morning. It looks amazing. So Fatma Malu Designs, Epi Almavai, if you're looking for graphic design, she is amazing at it, and probably just as amazing as her talent is her ability to just take what you need and send it back to you looking far better than I ever would have imagined. Every time she sends it back, I'm like, wow, I'm glad I didn't tell her what I was envisioning, because she came up with something way better than what I had in my mind. So thank you, Sister Epi. Let's see. Let's talk about the sheriff. Did you hear about the police chief in Georgia?
I did not.
So
maybe seen some headlines, but I didn't look into it.
Yeah, the chief in Hamilton, Georgia, got fired. So he and one of his patrolmen, John Brooks, were terminated, according to the assistant to the Hamilton mayor, Julie Brown. We won't play it, but basically it's the chief of police who is, he's the face and he's the spirit of the force. Like, what he's going to imprint his beliefs on his department. Right. He's talking about slavery, and I'm going to read you his comment.
Jesus.
About slavery. But it's good to know that this kind of stuff gets outed. You know what I mean? Because I think that because of all the programs and all the things we have that people begin to kind of get, I don't know, relaxed in that maybe
Complacent,
racism, not really that
we
big of
did
a
it.
thing.
We
anymore.
solved it. You know,
right.
Black president, black vice president, we did it. Racism, done.
Check that box and move on.
Yeah, not true.
I don't have the exact quote, but basically he was saying it's like slavery wasn't that bad. Look, they gave them clothes, they fed them, they gave them a roof over their house. All they had to do was effing work.
Was he joking?
No.
Because I know people have terrible sense of humor.
Yeah, you would think, right?
No.
But then he was using the N word, and it was N with the, he was saying, well, why is it once we tase a N word, it's like 27 times worse than we tase anybody else? It was eye opening. But do you think that we need more of these, or not more, but we need
more
to
ways
uncover
of,
more of
of
this
surfacing
to
this
keep
sort
putting
of racism within the police forces and any other leader position? I think so. I don't know how we're gonna do it with body cams everywhere, but we'll catch the occasional slip up here. I mean, this isn't the only time you've seen people speak on a hot mic, and you're just like, well, do they forget that the body cam was on? Because we heard that, and we got them in HD and 4K.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know how else to surface these kind of things. But sometimes you see warning signs. I'm sure if we go back and look in his history, there's some sort of complaints. These kind of people tend to show themselves in different ways. It doesn't sound like he had much respect for the black community, which I'm sure I don't know what the makeup is of Hamilton, but this is somebody who presided over a group,
Right.
the South, where you have a lot of black, at Georgia is predominantly black in many cities. And this is the kind of guy that is setting the tone for his whole police department. Just makes you worry. I don't know.
Yeah, I think they need to, they don't need to be created, but they do need to be in our eye, so that we don't, like you said, kind of check the box. We're done. We're done with racism.
But how do we weed out these people? How do we, if it wasn't for this body cam that he just spoke into, how else would we find out that he was, obviously racist?
I think that's why, scandals are so interesting to us, is because they uncover stuff that we're not supposed to, they're trying to do that they're not trying to let get out. I don't know. I don't know how systematically, we would root these out. It's kind of off topic, but Ahmaud Arbery. Remember Ahmaud Arbery?
Yeah, the gentleman that was jogging.
Yeah. And the Travis McMichael, and whatever, whatever happened with that? Like, I don't even know. Now I'm going to go try to figure out, like, when is the court trial, all that kind of stuff. But, that police department and that prosecutor and all those things only came out because of a scandal. They only came out because of some kid got murdered. So I like honest reporting, but I'm not against, when scandal's there, for it to be shown to the world, because I think a lot of those things is what becomes a catalyst for change, and kind of opens people's eyes to, oh wow, that stuff's still going on. Like,
well, I'd also like to see a plan of action come from this. We've identified a problem, obviously, and what are we going to do about it besides remove him? What actions are we going to take to further prevent this kind of person to be in charge? Because there's the power dynamics at play as well, where if he's the head of the department, he has a lot of influence that, people might be afraid to speak out in fear of losing their job. I'm sure not everybody agreed with what he said that worked there.
right.
But when you're the top dog and, trying to keep your job, it's hard to speak out against that. And I don't know how you reverse that.
When I saw I was on a message board, it's the first place I saw it. And so I listened to the tape, I listened to the audio version of it, and was thinking, because there's always going to be people that look at it and from a totally different perspective. So I stopped scrolling down on the message board, and I just turned off, my monitor, got up, walked away, and spent like 10 minutes on it, just going, what's going to be like, what will the argument be?
Right.
And I was thinking, they're set up, right? That's going to be the thing. So I go back on there and I look, and like a couple pages later, the people come out, right? They're like, oh, the mayor was black, and he said that the sheriff or the police chief didn't think that the body cam worked. That's why he was saying what he did. So he was set up. Somebody told him that it wouldn't work, and they caught him because of that. And I was like, they wouldn't have caught him doing anything if there was nothing to catch doing. Like, you can't set somebody up.
What a flawed argument.
Yeah, but I knew, I was like, I'm so proud of myself. I'm like, I figured out what the argument was going to be, and it was exactly that he was set up, that, you know, the mayor must have set him up, or somebody must have set him up, because
cops set up people all the time. It's a sting
all
operation.
the time,
and
right?
You know what they say? They go, okay, well, we caught you, but you're still doing it. That's how we got you. So I don't think that dismisses anything he said.
Right.
Whether or not he knew he was talking to the mic or not. I think it shows his beliefs and where he stands. And I don't think he should have power over one or two people, let alone an entire city.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and he's talking to one of his patrolmen. I mean,
Right.
He's talking to somebody who reports to him.
Right.
So I don't remember if that, you know, the other patrolman was involved, or if you were just kind of going, you know, that kind of thing. But, you know, you're still having the highest ranking officer in that department saying those kind of things, minimizing slavery. I don't know. I mean, slavery is offensive, but sometimes when people try to make it like it wasn't that bad, that is like Holocaust deniers. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, what do you mean you take somebody's freedom for one? Like, that's just off the top.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, there's people that just keep, you know, talk just like that. Like, well, they had a place to live. They had they have food. They were fed.
Yeah. You know, everybody's real tough, you know, retrospective. It wasn't that bad, says the people who weren't there. You know,
Right.
We weren't removed from a land, brought somewhere else, stripped of your identity. You know, people always talk about slave names, etc., but that's a real thing. People didn't know where they were coming from. You show up in the land, you don't speak English. They're beating you.
Right.
There's just so many things.
Yeah, no family, break up the family.
Yeah,
on
break up the
purpose. That
families.
was the thing. You don't want people, slaves, close to each
Being
other.
reduced to cattle. And so to downplay that in any fashion, to me, just is not. That, to me, is a clear indication that I will not agree with that person. And
Yeah, that's usually where I just don't. I can't talk to people like that, because I'm like, you're either trolling me, because like, who would really believe that, or you actually believe that, and in that case, I'm not going to change your mind. So we're just going to be, you know, at odds or in opposition 100% of the time.
And I've even heard the people like Kanye who, you know that it's a bad thing, but still trivialize it, in my eyes, in a disrespectful way, saying like, oh, well, how come they just didn't fight back? Or, you know, like, oh, you know, slaves, we could have did more. And it's like, but you don't know. You weren't there. You don't know what
Right.
it's like. You know, we can't sit here and talk about the mental health of people back in the days during those times. Like, it's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, I think he said something about the numbers of, there were 4 million slaves, and, you know, 300,000, whatever. They outnumbered their masters.
Yeah.
So he said, that sounds like a choice to me.
Yeah.
I was like,
I don't want to hear that. We don't need to go further on
he must
him.
have an album coming, because he always does something crazy when his album's coming up.
A lot of people do. It's a good move.
Yeah. You think that's too far?
I don't know. I'm not black, obviously. I can't speak on what should be talked about amongst the black community, but I would rather him not have that conversation with TMZ. You know,
That's a good point.
I'd rather him have that conversation with,
On the Breakfast Club, or
with more black people around him,
Right.
that could help, that understand the nuance of the conversation of what he's trying to say. But for me, and plus it's TMZ. They're not really the most trustworthy. They're not there to have a dialogue. They're there to, clickbait, celebrity gossips. So if they can create it on their own, then why not? That's what they're going to do.
There's a on that 30 to Life YouTube page that I was listening to. He talks about, should Pacific Islanders or Asians use the N-word, and he always frames it like, look, I'm just talking from my perspective and my experience in prison. He goes, there's older black people, black men in prison that find that extremely offensive. And he goes, and if people don't want to be called that, they don't want to hear that, then you don't use it. And he goes, and that was, you don't use it, it's offensive. And in prison, offensive means like you could end up starting a war because it only takes a certain few actions. I'm offended, so I do something, and then that's against those rules. And this gang's already committed to that, and this gang's, affiliated with that in prison, and then you go against these guys, but it could end up being over a word. And he was just talking about just not worth it. Like, just don't use the word. And it kind of plays out to, society, right? If that's offensive to them, then don't use the word. Like, as simple as that.
I think for me, that's just the base argument for it, right? Like, I'm sure there's probably some black people that, think that it's okay for some Samoan people to say it just because we're another underprivileged group. But the fact that there's any black people that are offended by it, I think we should respect that. Same way we feel, or certain people feel about our tattoos and our traditions that are kind of just being thrown around. Not saying that the N-word is a tradition or anything, but, there's a lot of history and context behind it.
Right.
And that's a lot deeper than me growing up around black people. Like, it's way before me or anyone of my generation. So,
yeah, it's kind of an odd argument anyway. Well, I know a black guy, so I can use that word.
Yeah.
Listen to that. Listen to that when you say it.
Yeah.
That doesn't make that much sense.
It's in the same category as that I have a black friend.
Right. I can't be racist. I got a black friend.
Yeah. Oh, no, my husband's black.
I can't be racist.
Can't be.
Might need a little bit more thought on that. Well, an hour's gone by. Mac, you got anything to add? Any shout outs? Anything you got going on this week you want to add before we go?
Yeah, next Saturday I'm having a rap battle.
That's right.
So I don't know. I don't want to. Think about me. I didn't know that it was public. It just recently became open to the public. So if you want to go find the flyer, put it out there. I'll probably post it later. If you don't want to go and you don't feel safe going, don't go. This is one of the rare times where I will tell you to don't go to an event. But I promise you, if you don't feel safe or you feel sick, hey, stay at home. It's not worth it. You can watch the rap battles on YouTube. We'll post them later. But that's the only things I have coming up. Other than that, hey, let's have another good week. I love you all, and maybe I'll see you next week.
You'll probably see Mac again next week. If Mena's running things, Mena is the director of Naki's Health Recovery. So she may be the producer here, but she's the boss when it comes to Naki's Health. So we're gonna have to consult with Mena on the date that Naki returns. But in between now and then, a real quick shout out, Kimberly Conley and Nelly Rodriguez. Welcome both on our Facebook page. And let's see, Naki has words in here. Tuesday's guest, FICA guest, is EPV Films. So tune in at 5 p.m. on the Poly by Design Facebook page. And Koviki Talk is tomorrow. So tune in for that. And until next week, come back and FICA with us.